The summer heat was unbearable in the small town of Riverside. Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked down the dusty road with his two best friends, Jamal and Derek. The three boys had just finished their shift at the local grocery store, earning minimum wage to help their families pay the bills. At 17, they all knew the weight of responsibility that sat heavy on their young shoulders. Marcus lived with his grandmother in a tiny apartment above the old barber shop. His parents had died in a car accident when he was 12, leaving him with nothing but memories and his grandmother's endless love. She worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table and the lights on. Every dollar Marcus earned went straight to her, and he never complained. Jamal's situation was just as tough. His mother worked as a night nurse at the hospital, and his father had left when Jamal was just 8 years old. With 3 younger siblings to help care for, Jamal often stayed up late helping with homework and making sure everyone had something to eat before his mother came home exhausted from her long shifts. Derek had the biggest family of all. His parents worked multiple jobs between them, but with 6 children in the house, money was always tight. Derek was the oldest, and he felt the pressure to set a good example for his brothers and sisters. He dreamed of going to college, but those dreams seemed impossible when every penny had to go toward keeping the family afloat. The 3 friends had been inseparable since elementary school. They shared everything, their hopes, their fears, and their determination to make something better of their lives. Despite their struggles, they never lost their sense of humor or their willingness to help others. Their teachers often praised them for their character, though they worried about their futures in a town where opportunities were scarce. As they walked home that evening, laughing about something silly that had happened at work, they heard a strange noise coming from ahead. It sounded like someone was in distress. The boys looked at each other and quickened their pace, their natural instinct to help overriding any thoughts of their own tiredness. Around the bend in the road, they saw an expensive black car pulled over to the side. Steam was rising from under the hood, and an elderly man in an expensive suit stood beside it, looking completely lost. He was holding a cell phone, but from his frustrated expression, it was clear he wasn't getting any signal. The man appeared to be in his 70s with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Without hesitation, Marcus approached the man. "Excuse me, sir, do you need some help?" he asked politely. His grandmother had always taught him to respect his elders and offer assistance when someone was in need. The man looked up, surprised but grateful. "Oh, thank goodness. Yes, I'm afraid my car is broken down, and I can't seem to get a cell phone signal out here. I don't know much about cars, I'm afraid." Jamal stepped forward and looked at the vehicle. It was clearly expensive, more expensive than any car he had ever seen in their neighborhood. "Mind if we take a look, sir? We're not mechanics, but we might be able to help." The man stepped aside gratefully. "Please, I would appreciate any help you can offer. My name is William, by the way." Derek had already popped the hood and was examining the engine. Steam continued to pour out, and it was clear what the problem was. "Looks like your radiator overheated, Mr. William. The coolant has all leaked out." William looked worried. "Is that serious? Can it be fixed?" Marcus nodded. "It's not too bad, but you'll need coolant and water to get it running again. There's a gas station about 2 miles back, but it's closed now. However, there's an auto parts store about a mile in the other direction that might still be open." "I could walk there," William offered, though he looked uncertain about the distance in his expensive shoes and formal attire. "No way," Jamal said immediately. "That's too far to walk in this heat, especially in those clothes. Tell you what, Derek, why don't you stay here with Mr. William? Marcus and I will run to the store and get what we need." Derek agreed, and the 2 boys set off at a jog toward the auto parts store. They used their own money they had earned that day and planned to give to their families, to purchase a gallon of coolant and some water. They didn't even hesitate or discuss it. Helping someone in need was just the right thing to do. When they returned, William was sitting in the shade with Derek, and the 2 were having an animated conversation about Derek's plans for the future. Derek had been telling him about his dream of becoming an engineer. Despite the financial obstacles he faced, Marcus and Jamal quickly got to work, draining the old coolant, checking for leaks, and refilling the radiator system. Their hands got dirty and their clothes got stained, but they didn't mind. They had learned these basic mechanical skills from necessity. When your family can't afford to take cars to mechanics, you learn to fix things yourself. After about 30 minutes of work, they had the car running smoothly again. William was amazed not only by their mechanical knowledge, but by their willingness to help a complete stranger without expecting anything in return. "How much do I owe you, boys?" William asked, reaching for his wallet. The three friends looked at each other and shook their heads. "Nothing, sir," Marcus said. "We're just glad we could help," William insisted, but the boys were firm in their refusal. "Our grandmothers taught us to help people when they need it," Jamal explained. "That's just what you do." As William prepared to leave, he asked each of the boys about their lives, their families, and their dreams. He listened carefully to their stories, asking thoughtful questions and showing genuine interest in their answers. There was something about this man that made them feel comfortable sharing their hopes and struggles. Finally, William shook each of their hands warmly. "Thank you, boys. You've restored my faith in humanity today. I won't forget your kindness." He drove away, leaving the three friends to continue their walk home, tired but satisfied that they had done the right thing. None of them could have imagined how dramatically their lives were about to change. The next morning started like any other for the three friends. Marcus woke up in his small bedroom to the sound of his grandmother making breakfast in their tiny kitchen. The smell of eggs and toast filled the cramped apartment, and he could hear her humming an old gospel song as she moved around, preparing for another long day of work. "Morning, Grandma," Marcus said as he shuffled into the kitchen, still rubbing sleep from his eyes. His grandmother Dorothy was a small woman with graying hair and hands that showed the wear of decades of hard work. But her smile could light up any room. "Morning, baby," she said, placing a plate of food in front of him. "You better eat up. You've got work today, and I don't want you going hungry." Marcus ate quickly, knowing that Jamal and Derek would be waiting for him soon. They always walked to work together, sharing stories and jokes along the way. It was one of the small pleasures that made their difficult lives more bearable. Meanwhile, across town, Jamal was helping his three younger siblings get ready for their summer day camp. His mother had already left for her day shift at the hospital, leaving him in charge until the camp bus arrived. 8-year-old Keisha couldn't find her lunchbox. 10-year-old Marcus Jr. had lost one of his shoes, and 6-year-old Amara was crying because she didn't want to go to camp. "Come on, guys," Jamal said patiently, helping Keisha search under the couch cushions. "We'll find everything." "Amara, remember yesterday when you told me how much fun you had making that art project? You'll get to do more of that today." After getting everyone fed, dressed, and on the camp bus, Jamal finally had a moment to get ready for his own day. He looked at himself in the bathroom mirror, noticing how tired he looked. Sometimes he felt much older than his 17 years. Derek's morning was equally chaotic. With 6 children in the house, the single bathroom was always busy, and breakfast was a complicated dance of sharing limited food among many hungry mouths. His parents had already left for their morning jobs, leaving Derek to help coordinate the controlled chaos of getting everyone ready for their various summer activities. "Sarah, you need to brush your teeth," Derek called to his 9-year-old sister. "Tommy, find your soccer cleats." Mom left them by the door. He moved through the house like a seasoned parent, making sure everyone had what they needed for the day. The three friends met at their usual corner and began their walk to the grocery store where they all worked. They talked about the previous evening's encounter with the stranded motorist, wondering if the man had made it safely to his destination. "He seemed really nice," Derek said. "Not stuck up like you might expect from someone with such an expensive car." "Yeah," Jamal agreed. "And he really listened when we told him about our lives. Most adults just pretend to care." Marcus nodded. "My grandma always says that you can tell a person's true character by how they treat people who can't do anything for them." That man was genuinely grateful. They arrived at Miller's grocery store and punched in for another day of stocking shelves, bagging groceries, and helping customers. The work was physically demanding and the pay was low. But Mr. Miller was a fair boss who understood their family situations and was flexible with their schedules. The morning passed slowly, with the usual routine of unpacking delivery trucks and organizing inventory. The store was busy with the typical mix of regular customers and tourists passing through their small town. Marcus was restocking the cereal aisle when Mrs. Henderson, one of their regular customers, approached him. "Marcus, honey," she said, looking excited. "Have you looked outside lately? There's quite a commotion in the parking lot." Marcus glanced toward the front windows but couldn't see much from where he stood. What kind of commotion, Mrs. Henderson? Well, there's this beautiful Rolls-Royce parked right out front, and there's a man in a suit asking people if they know where to find 3 young men who work here. He's got your names written down on a piece of paper. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. He called out to Jamal and Derek, who were working in other aisles. When he told them what Mrs. Henderson had said, all 3 boys looked at each other with confusion and growing excitement. Mr. Miller appeared from the back office, looking puzzled. "Boys, there's a gentleman outside asking for you specifically. He says it's important, and that he won't take up much of your time. Why don't you go see what he wants?" The 3 friends walked nervously toward the front of the store. Through the large windows, they could see a gleaming Rolls-Royce parked in the lot, its silver paint sparkling in the morning sun. It was easily the most expensive car that had ever been in their small town, and a small crowd of curious onlookers had gathered around it. Standing beside the car was William, the man they had helped the previous evening. But today he looked different somehow, more formal, more important. He was wearing an even more expensive suit, and there was something about his posture that suggested he was used to being in command. As the boys approached, William's face broke into a warm smile. "There you are. I was hoping I'd find you here, Mr. William," Marcus said uncertainly. "What are you doing here?" "Well," William said, his eyes twinkling with amusement, "I realized yesterday that I never properly thanked you boys for your help. You wouldn't let me pay you, so I thought I'd find another way to show my appreciation." Derek looked around at the growing crowd of spectators. "Sir, you really didn't need to come all the way back here. We were just happy to help." William chuckled. "I think you might change your mind about that. You see, boys, I wasn't entirely honest with you yesterday. My name is William Morrison, and I'm the founder and CEO of Morrison Technologies. Perhaps you've heard of the company." The boys exchanged glances. Even in their small town, they had heard of Morrison Technologies. It was one of the largest tech companies in the country, known for its innovative software and philanthropic efforts. William Morrison was frequently mentioned in business magazines as one of the wealthiest and most respected entrepreneurs in America. "You're that William Morrison?" Jamal asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Guilty as charged," William said with a grin. "And yesterday, 3 remarkable young men helped a stranger on the side of the road without knowing who he was or expecting anything in return. That kind of character is rare in this world, and I believe it should be rewarded." The crowd around them had grown larger, and people were straining to hear the conversation. Mr. Miller had come outside, along with several customers and other employees. Word was spreading quickly through the small town that something extraordinary was happening at Miller's grocery store. William gestured toward the Rolls-Royce. "This car is for you boys to share, but more importantly, I've done some research into your situations, and I'd like to discuss some opportunities that might interest you and your families." The 3 boys stood frozen in disbelief as William Morrison's words sank in. Around them, the crowd had grown to include nearly half the town, all whispering and pointing at the magnificent Rolls-Royce that gleamed like a jewel in the morning sunlight. "Sir," Marcus stammered, his voice shaking, "we can't accept a car like that. It must be worth more money than our families make in 10 years. William smiled warmly at their reaction. "You're absolutely right about the value, Marcus. But you're wrong about not being able to accept it. You see, yesterday you 3 young men taught me something valuable about humanity and kindness. That lesson is worth far more to me than any car." Derek stepped forward, his eyes wide with confusion and concern. "Mr. Morrison, we appreciate the gesture, but we're just regular kids from regular families. We don't even know how to drive something that expensive, and we definitely can't afford the insurance or maintenance." "All excellent points," William nodded approvingly. "I can see you're thinking practically, which only confirms my assessment of your character. Don't worry about any of those details. Everything has been taken care of. Insurance, maintenance, registration. The car comes with a full-time driver who will be available whenever you need transportation." Jamal looked around at the growing crowd, feeling overwhelmed by all the attention. "Mr. Morrison, why are you really doing this? People don't just give away cars worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to strangers." William's expression grew more serious. "You're not strangers, Jamal. Yesterday, when my car broke down, I wasn't just stranded on the side of the road. I was actually on my way to visit a potential location for a new community center that my foundation wants to build. I had been driving around this area for hours, looking at different properties and getting a feel for the community." He paused, looking at each of the boys in turn. What I discovered was far more valuable than any real estate. I found 3 young men who embody everything I believe in: integrity, compassion, hard work, and selflessness. In my 68 years of life and 40 years in business, I've learned that character like yours is the rarest and most precious commodity in the world. Mrs. Henderson, who had been listening from the front of the crowd, called out, "These boys have been helping people in this town their whole lives." Marcus shovels sidewalks for elderly neighbors in winter. Jamal tutors kids at the library for free. And Derek organized a food drive last Christmas for families in need. Other voices from the crowd began chiming in with their own stories about the boys' kindness and generosity. Mr. Miller stepped forward and addressed William directly. "Mr. Morrison, these young men are the finest employees I've ever had. They're honest, hardworking, and they treat every customer with respect. But more than that, they're the kind of people who make this community better just by being in it." William nodded, clearly moved by the testimonials. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You see, boys, I've built my company and my fortune, but I've always believed that true wealth comes from investing in people. Yesterday, you invested your time, energy, and money to help a stranger. Today, I want to invest in your futures." He walked over to the Rolls-Royce and opened the rear door. Inside, the boys could see leather seats that looked softer than any furniture they had ever touched, and technology that seemed to belong in a spaceship rather than a car. "But this car is just the beginning," William continued. "I'd like to invite all 3 of you and your families to my estate this weekend. I have a proposition that I think will interest you." Marcus looked at his friends, seeing his own mixture of excitement and terror reflected in their faces. "What kind of proposition, sir?" "Full college scholarships," William said simply. "To any university you choose with all expenses paid. Tuition, room and board, books, everything. Plus summer internships at Morrison Technologies so you can gain real-world experience in whatever field interests you." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Derek felt his knees go weak and Jamal had to steady him. Marcus stood with his mouth open, unable to process what he was hearing. "Additionally," William continued, raising his voice to be heard over the excited crowd, "I'd like to offer your families some immediate assistance. I know each of you has been working to help support your households, and I don't want financial stress to interfere with your education." Derek found his voice first. "Mr. Morrison, this is incredible, but why us? There must be thousands of kids who need help with college." "There are indeed," William agreed. "And my foundation helps many of them. But yesterday you 3 didn't help me because you knew who I was or what I could do for you. You helped because it was the right thing to do. That kind of authentic goodness can't be taught or faked. It comes from the heart, and it's exactly the kind of character I want to invest in." Sarah, Derek's 9-year-old sister, had somehow made her way through the crowd and was now tugging on his shirt. "Derek, is that man really giving you a fancy car?" Derek picked up his little sister, his eyes still filled with disbelief. "I think so, Sarah, I think he is." William approached the little girl with a gentle smile. "And you must be one of Derek's siblings. He told me yesterday about how much he loves his family and how hard he works to help take care of everyone." Sarah nodded solemnly. "Derek is the best big brother ever. He helps me with my homework and makes me pancakes on Saturday mornings. I can tell he's very special," William said, and then addressed the crowd. "This is why I'm doing this. These young men understand that success isn't just about personal achievement. It's about lifting up the people around you. They're going to change the world someday, and I want to make sure they have every opportunity to do so." Mr. Miller approached the group, looking emotional. "Boys, I want you to know that your jobs will be here whenever you need them, but you should absolutely take advantage of this opportunity. This is the kind of chance that comes once in a lifetime." Marcus finally found his voice. "Mr. Morrison, our families need to hear about this. They won't believe it unless they hear it directly from you." "Of course," William smiled. "That's why I'd like all of you to come to my estate this weekend. Bring your families and we'll discuss all the details. My driver will pick everyone up Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. As if on cue, a man in a crisp uniform stepped forward from near the Rolls-Royce. "Good morning, gentlemen. My name is James, and I'll be your driver whenever you need transportation. It's an honor to meet you." The boys shook hands with James, still unable to fully grasp the reality of their situation. Around them, the crowd continued to buzz with excitement, and several people were already pulling out their phones to call friends and family with the news. William handed each of the boys a business card with his personal contact information. "If you have any questions or concerns before Saturday, Please don't hesitate to call me. And boys? He paused, looking at each of them seriously. Don't ever change who you are. The world needs more people like you. As William prepared to leave, he turned back one more time. Oh, and the car? Consider it a graduation present. You'll need reliable transportation when you start college. With that, he climbed into another vehicle that had been waiting nearby, leaving the three friends standing next to their new Rolls-Royce, surrounded by a crowd of neighbors and friends who couldn't stop cheering and congratulating them. The news of what had happened at Miller's grocery store spread through Riverside like wildfire. By afternoon, reporters from 3 different newspapers had arrived, and the local television station was setting up cameras in the store's parking lot. The 3 boys found themselves thrust into a spotlight they had never asked for and weren't sure they wanted. Marcus hurried home during his lunch break to tell his grandmother what had happened. He found her in the kitchen of their small apartment, preparing for her afternoon shift at the diner where she worked as a waitress. "Grandma, you're not going to believe what happened today," Marcus began, his words tumbling out in an excited rush. Dorothy looked up from the sandwich she was wrapping for her lunch. "Slow down, baby. Take a breath and tell me what's got you so worked up." Marcus sat down at their small kitchen table and told her everything, about helping the stranded motorist the night before, about William Morrison revealing his identity, about the Rolls-Royce and the scholarship offer. As he spoke, his grandmother's eyes grew wider and wider. When he finished, Dorothy sat down heavily in her chair, her hand pressed to her chest. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. "Marcus, are you telling me the truth? This isn't some kind of joke?" "It's real, Grandma. The car is sitting outside Miller's right now, and there are reporters everywhere. Mr. Morrison wants to meet with our families on Saturday to discuss the scholarships." Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "Baby, I've been praying for a miracle to help you get to college. I've been working extra shifts and saving every penny, but it was never going to be enough. And now you're telling me that God sent an angel in the form of a billionaire? I don't know about angels," Marcus said, reaching over to take his grandmother's weathered hand. "But I know that Mr. Morrison seems genuine. He really wants to help us." Dorothy wiped her eyes with her apron. "Your mama and daddy would be so proud of you, Marcus. They raised you right in the short time they had, and you've grown into exactly the kind of man they would have wanted you to be." Meanwhile, across town, Jamal was having a similar conversation with his mother, who had just come home from her morning shift at the hospital. Linda Washington was a practical woman who had learned to be skeptical of things that seemed too good to be true. "Jamal, honey, I want to believe this is real, but people don't just give away college scholarships to teenagers they met on the side of the road," she said, sitting on their worn couch and pulling him down beside her. "I know it sounds crazy, Mom, but it really happened. James, the driver, gave me his card and said he'll be here Saturday morning to pick us all up. And Mom, you should see this car. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Linda studied her son's face carefully. She had raised him to be honest and trustworthy, and she could see that he truly believed everything he was telling her. "What exactly did this man say about the scholarships?" "Full ride to any college we want. Tuition, room and board, books, everything. Plus summer internships at his company so we can get work experience." Linda shook her head in amazement. "If this is real, Jamal, it's going to change everything for our family. I won't have to work double shifts anymore trying to save for your college. Your brothers and sisters won't have to worry about whether there will be enough money for them to go to school someday." At Derek's house, the reaction was even more dramatic. When Derek arrived home to tell his family the news, he found chaos as usual. His parents, Robert and Maria, were both between jobs, trying to coordinate childcare and household duties while preparing for their evening work shifts. "Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something important," Derek announced, gathering his 5 siblings around the kitchen table. "Can it wait, mijo?" his mother asked, bouncing baby Antonio on her hip while trying to help 7-year-old Rosa with a puzzle. "Your father and I have to leave for work in 20 minutes. No, Mom, it really can't wait. This is going to change everything for our family." Something in Derek's tone made both parents stop what they were doing and give him their full attention. Derek told them the entire story, and when he finished, the house was completely silent for the first time he could remember. Robert, his father, was the first to speak. "Derek, son, are you sure this isn't some kind of scam? Rich people don't just give away money to poor families." "Dad, there were dozens of witnesses. Mr. Miller was there, Mrs. Henderson, half the neighborhood. The car is real. The driver is real, and the reporters who came to interview us are real. Maria sat down at the table, still holding the baby. Derek, if this is true, it means you'll really be able to go to college. You'll be able to become an engineer like you've always dreamed. Derek's youngest sister, 5-year-old Carmen, climbed onto his lap. Derek, does this mean we're rich now? Derek hugged her tightly. No, Carmen, we're not rich, but it means I might be able to help our family more in the future, and it means all of you kids will have a better chance to go to college someday too. As word continued to spread throughout the community, the 3 boys found themselves receiving congratulations from people they barely knew. Teachers from their old high school called to express their pride. Neighbors stopped by their houses with flowers and homemade treats. Even the mayor issued a statement praising the boys for representing the best values of their community, but not everyone was celebrating. At the grocery store that afternoon, Marcus overheard 2 customers talking in hushed tones about the situation. I don't know why those boys think they deserve all this attention, one woman said. They just helped someone change a tire. People do that every day. Exactly, her companion agreed. And now they're acting like they're celebrities or something. It's gone to their heads already. Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment and anger, but he said nothing. Instead, he continued stocking shelves and tried to focus on his work. When Jamal found him a few minutes later, Marcus told him about the conversation. People are going to say things, Jamal said wisely. Some people get angry when good things happen to others because it reminds them of what they don't have. We can't let that change who we are or how we feel about this opportunity. Derek joined them during their break, and they sat outside behind the store away from the cameras and reporters. This is all so overwhelming, Derek admitted. Part of me keeps thinking I'm going to wake up and find out it was all a dream. I know what you mean, Marcus said. But you know what? Even if it all disappeared tomorrow, I'd still be glad it happened. For one day, we got to see what it feels like to have hope for the future. It's not going to disappear, Jamal said firmly. Mr. Morrison didn't strike me as the kind of man who makes promises he doesn't keep. I think our lives really are about to change. As they sat there in the afternoon sun, watching their small town buzz with excitement around them, the 3 friends made a pact. No matter what happened, no matter how much their circumstances changed, they would never forget where they came from or stop helping others the way they had been helped. They had no idea that their story was about to spread far beyond their small town, or that William Morrison had plans for them that went far beyond college scholarships. Saturday morning arrived with a mixture of nervous excitement and disbelief. At exactly 10 o'clock, the gleaming Rolls-Royce pulled up in front of Marcus's apartment building, followed by a second luxury vehicle to accommodate all the family members. James, the driver, stepped out wearing his crisp uniform and a warm smile. Marcus had barely slept the night before, alternating between excitement and worry that somehow this was all an elaborate mistake. His grandmother had spent the morning getting ready, wearing her best church dress and the pearl necklace that had belonged to her own mother. I still can't believe this is happening, Dorothy whispered to Marcus as they walked down the stairs from their apartment. In all my 63 years, I never imagined I'd be riding in a car like that. Jamal's family was ready and waiting on their front porch when the cars arrived. His mother, Linda, had managed to get the day off from the hospital, and his 3 younger siblings were pressed against the windows, their eyes wide with amazement. They had seen the car on television the night before when the local news ran the story, but seeing it in person was entirely different. Remember what we talked about? Linda quietly reminded her children as they walked toward the cars. We're guests, so everyone needs to be on their best behavior. Derek's family took up most of the second vehicle, with 6 children ranging in age from baby Antonio to 17-year-old Derek. The logistics of getting everyone ready had been complicated, but Robert and Maria had managed to get all the kids dressed in their Sunday best, and the excitement in the car was infectious. The drive to William Morrison's estate took about an hour, winding through increasingly affluent neighborhoods until they reached a gated community that looked like something from a movie. The estate itself was breathtaking, a sprawling mansion set on hundreds of acres of perfectly manicured grounds, with gardens, fountains, and even a small lake visible from the circular driveway. Holy cow, Derek's 10-year-old brother Tommy whispered as they pulled up to the front entrance. This place is bigger than our whole neighborhood. William Morrison was waiting for them at the front door, no longer wearing the expensive business suit from their previous encounters. Instead, he was dressed casually in khakis and a polo shirt, looking more like a favorite grandfather than one of the wealthiest men in America. "Welcome, welcome," he called out as the families emerged from the cars. "I'm so glad you could all make it. Please come in and make yourselves at home." The interior of the house was even more impressive than the exterior. High ceilings, beautiful artwork, and furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. But William quickly put everyone at ease with his warm hospitality and genuine interest in getting to know each family member. He knelt down to talk to Derek's little sister Carmen, asking her about her favorite subjects in school. He listened intently as Jamal's mother described her work at the hospital. He praised Dorothy for raising such a fine young man under difficult circumstances. "Before we talk about scholarships and futures," William said, addressing the group as they gathered in his spacious living room, "I want you all to understand why I'm doing this. These 3 young men didn't just help a stranger fix his car. They demonstrated the kind of character and values that I believe are essential for building a better world." He gestured toward a wall lined with photographs showing various charity events and community projects. "My company has been successful, and with that success comes responsibility. I've spent the last 20 years trying to find meaningful ways to give back to society. But I've learned that the most important investment isn't in buildings or programs, it's in people." Maria, Derek's mother, raised her hand tentatively. "Mr. Morrison, this is incredibly generous, but we have to ask, what do you expect in return?" "Nothing this big comes without strings attached." William smiled at her directness. "You're absolutely right to ask that question, Maria. And the answer is simple. I don't expect anything in return except that these young men continue to be the exceptional people they already are. No contracts, no obligations, no conditions." He walked over to a desk and picked up 3 thick folders. These contain the details of the scholarship programs I'm offering. Full tuition, room and board, and expenses for any accredited 4-year university in the United States. The boys can study whatever they want, wherever they want. Marcus's grandmother stood up, her voice shaking with emotion. "Mr. Morrison, I don't know how to thank you. I've been praying for a way to help my grandson go to college, but I never imagined anything like this." "Mrs. Washington," William said gently, "you've already given Marcus the most important gift anyone could receive. You've raised him to be a person of integrity and compassion. That's worth more than any amount of money." Derek looked at the folder with his name on it, still struggling to believe this was real. "Mr. Morrison, what if we're not smart enough for college? What if we fail?" "Derek, intelligence comes in many forms. You 3 demonstrated wisdom, problem-solving skills, and emotional intelligence when you helped me. Those qualities are just as important as test scores or grades. And if you struggle academically, we'll provide tutoring and support to help you succeed." Jamal raised his hand. "Sir, you mentioned summer internships. What would we actually be doing?" William's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "I'm glad you asked. Morrison Technologies works on cutting-edge projects in artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and educational software. You'd have the opportunity to work alongside some of the brightest minds in technology, learning skills that will serve you for the rest of your careers." He paused, looking at each of the boys in turn. "But more than that, I hope you'll help us stay connected to communities like yours. Too often, successful companies lose touch with the real-world problems that everyday people face. Your perspectives and experiences will make us better." The family spent the next 2 hours touring the estate, eating lunch prepared by William's chef, and asking dozens of questions about the scholarship program. William answered each question patiently and thoroughly, making it clear that he had thought through every detail. As the visit was winding down, William gathered the 3 boys together privately while their families continued to explore the grounds. "I want you to know that this opportunity comes with no pressure," he said seriously. "If any of you decide that college isn't the right path, or if you want to pursue something different, that's perfectly fine. The goal is to remove financial barriers so you can make choices based on your dreams rather than your circumstances." Marcus looked at his 2 best friends, seeing his own mixture of gratitude and determination reflected in their faces. "Mr. Morrison, we don't know how to repay you for this." "You don't need to repay me," William replied. "But I hope that someday, when you're successful and established in your careers, you'll find ways to help other young people the way I'm helping you. That's how we change the world, one act of kindness at a time." As the families prepared to leave, William handed each of the boys a business card with the contact information for his scholarship coordinator. Take the summer to research universities and programs that interest you. We'll start the application process in the fall and you can begin college next year. Derek's father, Robert, approached William as they were saying their goodbyes. Mr. Morrison, I want you to know that you're not just changing my son's life. You're changing our whole family's future. We'll never forget this kindness. William shook Robert's hand warmly. The pleasure is entirely mine, Robert. I have a feeling that Derek is going to accomplish great things, and I'm honored to be able to help make that possible. As the cars pulled away from the estate, the three families sat in stunned silence, each processing the magnitude of what had just happened. Their lives had been forever changed by a simple act of kindness on a dusty road, and the future that had once seemed impossible now stretched before them full of unlimited possibilities. 5 years later, the small town of Riverside looked very different. What had started as one act of kindness had grown into something much larger than anyone could have imagined. The local newspaper had picked up the story of the three boys and William Morrison, and from there it had spread to national media, inspiring similar acts of generosity across the country. Marcus stood on the stage at Stanford University, adjusting his graduation cap as he prepared to deliver the valedictorian speech for his computer science class. In the audience, his grandmother Dorothy sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face as she watched her grandson achieve what had once seemed impossible. Beside her sat William Morrison, who had made it a point to attend all three boys' graduations. 4 years ago, Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly across the packed auditorium. I thought my biggest dream was just to graduate from high school and maybe find a job that paid enough to help my grandmother pay the bills. I never imagined I'd be standing here today, about to start my career as a software engineer at one of the world's leading technology companies. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. But the real lesson I've learned isn't about academic achievement or career success. It's about the power of kindness and the responsibility that comes with opportunity. When three friends helped a stranger on the side of the road, we weren't thinking about rewards or recognition. We were just doing what felt right. That simple act changed not just our lives, but the lives of our families and our entire community. Meanwhile, across the country at MIT, Jamal was putting the finishing touches on his doctoral thesis in artificial intelligence. He had completed his undergraduate degree in 3 years, graduating summa cum laude, and had immediately been accepted into the prestigious PhD program with full funding. His research focused on developing AI systems that could help improve healthcare in underserved communities, a passion directly inspired by watching his mother work as a nurse. The internships at Morrison Technologies had been transformative for all three young men. They had worked on real projects, contributed to meaningful innovations, and gained experience that most students never get until years after graduation. But more importantly, they had learned from William Morrison's example about using success as a platform for helping others. Derek had chosen a different path, attending the University of Chicago to study engineering, while also pursuing a minor in business. His goal was to start his own company focused on developing affordable technology solutions for low-income communities. During his junior year, he had already filed 2 patents for inventions that could help reduce energy costs for families like his own. As Derek worked in his dorm room late one evening, perfecting his business plan for a startup company, he received a video call from his younger siblings back home. The family's circumstances had improved dramatically over the past few years, not just because of Derek's scholarship, but because William Morrison had quietly helped his father Robert start his own small construction business. "Derek," little Carmen called out, now 10 years old and full of energy. "Guess what? I got accepted into the gifted program at school." Derek grinned at the screen, remembering when Carmen used to ask if they were rich after the day everything changed. In a way, they were rich now, not necessarily in money, though their financial stress had been greatly reduced, but rich in opportunities and hope for the future. The three friends stayed in close contact throughout their college years, video calling every week to share their experiences and support each other through challenges. They had promised each other that success wouldn't change their friendship or their values, and they had kept that promise. During their final summer internships at Morrison Technologies, William Morrison called them into his office for a special meeting. Now in his early 70s, he moved a bit slower than he had 5 years earlier, but his eyes still held the same kindness and wisdom that had drawn the boys to trust him from the beginning. I have a proposition for you three, William said, settling into his chair behind the massive desk. I'm starting a new foundation called the Second Chance Initiative, focused on identifying and supporting young people who demonstrate exceptional character despite difficult circumstances. I'd like you to help me run it. Marcus, Jamal, and Derek exchanged glances. They had all received job offers from major technology companies, with starting salaries that would immediately lift their families into comfortable middle-class life. Sir, Jamal said carefully, we're incredibly honored by the offer, but we've already committed to positions at other companies. We can't break our word, William smiled. I'm not asking you to break any commitments. Work for those companies, gain experience, build your careers, but I'd like you to serve on the Foundation's board of directors, helping to identify recipients and mentor young people who are in situations similar to where you were 5 years ago. Derek leaned forward with interest. What exactly would that involve? Traveling to communities like your hometown, meeting with young people who have been nominated by teachers, community leaders, or employers for their character and potential, helping to evaluate scholarship applications and mentorship opportunities. Most importantly, sharing your stories and showing other kids that circumstances don't have to define destiny. The foundation officially launched 6 months later, with Marcus, Jamal, and Derek as its first board members, alongside several other successful individuals who had overcome significant challenges in their youth. Their first initiative was to return to Riverside and establish a permanent scholarship program for graduates of their old high school. When they arrived back in their hometown for the announcement, they were amazed by how much had changed. The story of their success had attracted other businesses and investments to the area. The old downtown had been revitalized, new jobs had been created, and the general sense of hopelessness that had once pervaded the community had been replaced by optimism and possibility. Mr. Miller, now in his 60s, still ran the grocery store where the boys had worked. He greeted them with enormous pride as they visited to announce that the store would serve as a collection point for scholarship applications. You boys have made this whole town proud, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But more than that, you've shown everyone here that good things can happen to good people. Dorothy, now enjoying a comfortable retirement, thanks to the financial security that Marcus's success had brought to their family, had become something of a local celebrity. She often spoke at church and community events about the importance of raising children with strong moral values, regardless of economic circumstances. I always told Marcus that if you do right by people, the Lord will find a way to do right by you, she would say. I just never imagined it would happen quite like this. The Second Chance Initiative grew rapidly, eventually expanding to dozens of communities across the country. Marcus, Jamal, and Derek used their professional success and personal experience to identify and support hundreds of young people who might otherwise have been overlooked by traditional scholarship programs. 10 years after that fateful evening on the dusty road outside Riverside, the three friends gathered once again at William Morrison's estate, this time as successful professionals and community leaders. They came to celebrate the Foundation's 10th anniversary and to honor William, who had been diagnosed with a serious illness but remained actively involved in the organization's work. When I met you boys that night, William said, addressing the assembled crowd of scholarship recipients, community leaders, and donors, I thought I was just getting help with a broken-down car. I had no idea that I was about to meet 3 young men who would teach me more about the true meaning of success than I had learned in 40 years of business. He paused, looking at Marcus, Jamal, and Derek with obvious pride. These men have proven that character isn't determined by circumstances. They've used their opportunities not just to improve their own lives, but to create opportunities for others. That's the real measure of success. Not what you achieve for yourself, but what you make possible for others. As the evening wound down, the three friends stood together on the same terrace where they had first learned about their scholarships a decade earlier. They were no longer the uncertain teenagers who had worried about basic survival. Marcus was now a senior software engineer at a major tech company and had started his own nonprofit focused on bringing computer education to underserved communities. Jamal had completed his PhD and was working on revolutionary healthcare AI while teaching part-time at a prestigious university. Derek had successfully launched his clean energy startup and was already planning to expand internationally. But despite all their professional achievements, they remained the same people at heart, young men who understood the value of kindness, the importance of helping others, and the power of never giving up on your dreams. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we had just driven past that night? Derek asked as they looked out over the estate's beautiful gardens. Every day, Marcus replied. But then I remember what my grandmother always told me. Everything happens for a reason. We were meant to be on that road at that moment.